I started the presentation. The reason I mentioned sleep is you can tell around 12:13 a.m. we were asleep because someone asked us a question about Notivize in our channel and we weren't there. But our boy Avinash popped in, pasted some screenshots, pasted some code, helped us out. Thanks a lot, Avinash. That really shows the spirit of the hacker community helping each other out. And with that, I will get started on the boring part of the workshop, which is the slides, but I'll go through that quickly. Again, now we're Notivize, we're Noti by nature. So I want to talk a little bit today about the history of low-code, no-code solutions and how they can help not only win hackathons, but accelerate product roadmaps, accelerate careers. I'll tell a little story about the first company I started. It was a company called You Send It way back in 2004, 2005. And back then it was a freemium subscription product. And we had to code our own payment system on top of PayPal. So we built, using the PayPal's APIs, we built a system where somebody could swipe their credit card. We would securely charge them. We would have to keep track of when the next time we had to charge them was, the amount. If they signed up halfway through the month, we had to prorate it and only charge them for half the month. If they canceled in week one, we had to refund. We had to anticipate problems with retrying credit cards and reminding people to update their credit card 30 days, 15 days, 7 days before it expired. And that was the reality. If that ever crashed, we didn't get paid. So that was the world back in, well, it was 2004, 2005, but it feels like it was the 1920s because 10 years later, a little company called Stripe came up and they abstracted away everything we'd built. And we didn't have to maintain that. We would never have to worry about that crashing because it was a best-in-class solution. They had all sorts of tricks about, making sure everything worked properly. So I've never built a payment system, after that. Similarly, for things like user management authentication, these days, when I start a new project, I don't code up a user management system. I use something like Auth0, which now is part of Okta. In the first company I started, I actually coded the analytics solution, and it would, we would feed it server logs, and 3 hours later, it would pop out with how many unique visitors we had that month. By the end of that company, we were using Google Analytics to give us that in real time. So, go down the list, and these are all things that we would never code again ourselves, although they're extremely critical parts of company building. And on the right, it was kind of, the evolution is, they all started as development tools, just API-based stuff, but as the landscape evolved, no-code, low-code tools became prevalent. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So why are no-code, low-code solutions important? We like to think of them as they give product teams superpowers. So the world is moving such that non-technical people and technical people need to work together to deliver great products. This really started in internal use cases, like in the enterprise, but more and more it's showing up in everyday use cases. And we'll talk about that, especially Arthur will show you kind of a hands-on demo about how you could offload some, kind of core workflows to no-code, low-code. And yeah, today, just the mentality is a mix of no-code, low-code solutions, and code can really accelerate your time to hackathon victory. So let's say you finished your degree, or you've landed your next job, and the full horror will set in, because the professional environment of product building kind of looks like this, where a customer will say, hey, what you guys have out in the market is great, but I want a slightly different feature, or I want a little bit of a tweak. And then the product manager will say, okay, well, we'll get that prioritized, and we'll take it to the engineering team. And the engineering team is really busy. They have lots of fires to put out. They go, well, that's kind of old code. Do we really need to do that now? And they'll push back. Then you eventually have to escalate it to, a VP of product or engineering, and then they'll say, okay, fine, we'll put some resources on it. And you kind of get half of what you want, or maybe the minimum version of what you want, and it's delivered late, and it's not quite right, and nobody wants to go through that loop again. So companies end up under leveraging core parts of their product roadmap, like notifications, I would argue, that could really build sustained user engagement. How it works with no code, low code. the customer says, hey, I want to tweak this feature or a new feature, the product manager can go into a template and an existing template that's out there and kind of cut and paste a little bit of code or configure it using a wizard and kind of show it to the engineer. The engineer may test it, may not, depending on the system. Analytic systems, for example, you can add rules and nobody ever has to check those things before they get into production because it's fairly low risk. The engineer will give it the thumbs up and it will automatically be pushed into production. And the features are delivered faster. You can iterate when the market changes. You're not left behind because you're not waiting for the pull request to be approved and testing to be completed. And that's a recipe for success. What is no code exactly? Think about it as kind of building blocks that are assembled usually through a visual UI or a form that allows a relatively non-technical person to build applications or parts of applications and solutions. These are typically templatized, so they're database-driven apps, customer portals or e-commerce platforms, templatized apps. So if you got some sort of simple finance flow that you need to show to your users, or content management, or maps, and a lot of times internal tools. So DevOps monitoring, reporting, data visualizations. These are all examples of no code, and I'll take you through a couple systems in a few seconds. What's low code? It's very similar to no code, but typically the UI-driven environment resembles more of a programming environment. You're building logic, you're building interfaces, and sometimes it spits out a little bit of pre-generated code that be cut and pasted. So think about, if you've ever used Google Analytics, there's a little snippet that you need to paste in your footer of your website that can be customized. And it allows for flexible core workflows to be outsourced and abstracted so that you're not spending, half your time doing non-core parts of your product, and you're really working on the secret sauce. So why is it important? Technical resources. I know there's a lot of technical folks out there, are scarce and expensive. So you should ideally be focused on solving really large problems, not rebuilding an authentication system, not rebuilding, kind of what Stripe has democratized in terms of payment systems. It just doesn't make any sense if there's optimized solutions out there for you. You should solve your company, your project's core value proposition. In the real world, it's usually a business owner that's responsible for things like number of subscriptions per month. It's not a developer, but if the business owner needs to change something in the workflow to drive more monetization, and they're dependent on a developer to enable that, that's kind of not fair. It's the world we live in, but how do you give the keys of the car to the business owner so that they can control their own fate? And I'll use the word democratize that workflow. And then markets change really fast. Most startups die because things like the iPhone come out, or things like AR, VR come out, and you're not able to keep up with market changes. So no code, low code allows you to course correct really quickly, and this can often result in victory, including hackathons. So let's go through a few examples that maybe you can use today, or maybe you can use the next time. I would say the granddaddy of no code, or maybe not the granddaddy, but a really popular system, no code system, is bubble.io. If you've never tried it, go check it out. It's basically a drag and drop environment where, depending on what you're building, you can get a mapping component, get a login component, get a data visualization component, and really cobble together entire solutions quickly. A buddy of mine actually put together kind of a custom e-commerce community, and actually showed it to venture capitalists, and that was kind of his MVP demo product. And then he continued to develop it, without writing that much code. So they have examples of things you can build there using their drag and drop UI elements and data sources. So I think here I've got screenshots of, a meeting environment, real estate play, a little bit of a finance play. But don't be misled. There's actually quite a bit of depth in the product, and it takes a lot of work to learn it. It's not coding, but there's a lot of configuration and secret tools in there. But check it out. That could be something that you could get up and running really quickly with Bubble.io. Another flavor might be something like Google Tables. I won't mention the other big player in that because they're not a sponsor today, and Google is. There's some potential use cases there that it may map to. So project management, financial apps, marketplaces, content, e-commerce. These are all things you can kind of build the back end for with Google Tables, maybe even some of the front end. But I think that's going to change quickly, where there's, today it's a lot of internal and back office use cases, but soon using things like the bots that Google's released to provide workflow automation and APIs to connect different data sources. You're already starting to see other systems being built on things like Google Tables that provides a kind of a consumer facing front end. So that's maybe if you're not ready or willing to write an entire back end, something like a Google Tables, which is a spreadsheet, collaborative spreadsheet environment on steroids with workflow automation, could get you there. And then now this other company, I hear they're kind of cool. Notivize is another example of a low-code solution, which allows, our philosophy at Notivize is that you should really allow technical and non-technical team members to work together collaboratively to create things like, you may think a notification cadence is kind of secondary, but when you're trying to bring users back to your app, when you're trying to drive engagement, a notification cadence is low-hanging fruit, but oftentimes companies don't have a lot of time to really perfect that. And you kind of get, I'm sure you've used an application where they're sending you notifications that you didn't want, or it feels like spam. How do you intelligently and quickly iterate on this so the notification cadence is a kind of a custom experience for your core application? And our solution allows you to configure a notification, generate code for it, and hand it off to a developer team that can integrate it in minutes. And we encourage you to do that, because there is a prize. It's not too late to enter. As you're thinking about polishing the app or the hack that you've built, notifications can really help you make it stand out. And lastly, why low code? Not everything's a template. Bubble's great for things that they have modules for, but if you don't, then you really need to go and get your hands dirty. Low-code systems tend to work with many different other systems, so you're not stuck to a walled garden where everything has to be hosted, on one particular platform or use one particular API set. They usually play nice with other systems, and drives productivity in a bunch of groups. So your technical people can focus on the core workflows. The non-technical people can, help out by building logic and generating code as well. And there's a good collaborative environment. And I will hand it over to Arthur Rio, who's going to give us a good example of, what does an all-code system look like, and what does a low-code system look like?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I put together some examples to show you like what you would build yourself and what you would build using Notivize. Let me grab the chat. I'm going to paste a link. That's a GitHub repo I made with some examples. I'm going to share my screen to go through it together. And hopefully you get a sense of what Notivize can do for you. So I hope you can all see my screen. And let me see the chat. And if at any time you have a question, feel free to speak up. So I can't see the chat. Well, yeah, here it is. Okay, so I have the chat. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them. So first off, let's look at a very simple example. So it's basic. What I've done is just generated a snippet on Notivize and just put it in a Python command that you can reuse by providing some data. So right now I'm just going to show you how I built that, where did I get that snippet. So I would encourage all of you to go to notivize.com/sfhacks so that you get extra credits to try your hacks today. You can sign up, it's very quick. Let's see if I can do it. I already have an account, but you see you get some extra credit, which is nice. You can claim it. So the first thing you want to do, you might not have the workspace if you are in a free tier, but I'm going to show you anyway. So we're just going to do a basic example. And the theme of the example was an AQI, air index quality. Because, if you are in San Francisco, you probably have had to deal with the fires and stay indoors when it was bad. So let's see. So here we're going to create our first notification, and I'm going to call it, I keep messing it up, AIQ basic.
No, it's AQI. It's AQI.
Is it? Air quality?
air
Oh
quality
yeah,
index.
air quality index.
It might be reversed in France.
Yes, probably. So here you have two solutions. You can use just the developer APIs, or you can use the no-code notification builder. The developer API is basically just giving you an endpoint. You can call it anytime, and every time you call it, you'll get a notification sent. Today, I want to show you the no-code solution we have. So here you can choose between multiple channels. Right now, you have to create one notification per channel, but in the future, we'll support multiple channels per notification. So let's say your user prefers SMS, they'll get an SMS instead of an email. So here, AQI alert, fill in the subject. And in the template, that's where you can use things like template variables, like you see first name. So you can say, hi, first name, stay indoors today, AQI is, and then you're going to pass your AQI value. Next, we're going to say, so at the bottom, you see that by default, it will use the Notivize email service or SMS service if you picked SMS. So you're basically using our account to send your SMS, but you have also integrations to set up your own SendGrid, Twilio, whatever you use to send emails or SMS. So that way you can really get started and try out your ideas without having to do too much setup. We just provide that for you. Now you have to choose what will trigger this notification to be sent. So here's an example. In our case, like if we go above a certain threshold, we want to send a notification. So we're going to call it AQI, and it's a number, and we'll say if it's greater than 150, send a notification. So that's, here you see that the UI lets you do some logic that otherwise you would have had to code in your code base. So here, you can have anybody do it directly in Notivize. And then the cool thing here is that you can choose how many times you want to send a notification. So sometimes, like email signup, you probably want to send it only once. And if you trigger the notification by mistake again, you don't want to send the notification again. So that's pretty convenient to have that here. So for our use case here, we're going to say each time the condition is newly met, which means that if the AQI is above 150, and for example, it's 160 and then 170, we won't send another notification. You'll have to go under the 150 and then back above it to receive a notification. Which also you'll see later that it might seem trivial to implement, but actually can require more changes in your code base. So we have a unique identifier. For example, in our case, we'll call it sensor ID.
Hey, Arthur, your screen may be frozen for folks right now.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it was just me.
Let's try it again. Share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, we have a Zoom bug. I will just restart Zoom super quick, and I'll be back in a second.
Okay. Anybody else watching the Manchester Derby in the background? Go Manchester City? No? All right, while Arthur's doing that, I will put a plug-in for making sure that you sign up for Notivize and implement a notification, kind of like Arthur's going to show us. So hopefully, you can win one of our prizes. Okay, Arthur's back, and I can see his screen.
All right, screen is back up. So I was on the last stage of creating the notification. Here you can see what Ranjit mentioned earlier. We spit out a code snippet for you. Right now we have JavaScript and Python. We'll have more languages later. But it's pretty simple. You have basically a payload you have to send and an API endpoint to reach. I would encourage you to use security, so you can easily add an API key or a JWT authentication to your endpoint. But for today, let's skip that. So now I can show you here, I copied the curl command. So if we just fill in some things like email, utilize.com, then the value, let's put it above 152. And then let's not make any typos. My first name is Arthur. And so the unique ID is something that will differentiate two notifications. So for example, if I'm subscribed to, I don't know, in San Francisco, the Mission sensor and maybe the Balboa Park sensor, I want to have notifications for both, then you need a way to differentiate the two. So here, let's call this one the sensor from a Mission. So that will be its unique ID. Usually it'll be something like a database ID or something like that. So let's go ahead and send it. So you should get not a message. Okay, oh, sorry. I like to have leading commas in my code, but when you write JSON, you can't have leading commas. Okay, what did I do again? Data. I think I'm missing something.
Yeah, the unique ID, you didn't close the
oh yeah,
double quote. I still got it. I still got it.
Yeah, I mean, something has to go wrong during a presentation, right? Okay, so now we get a 202 back, which means accepted. And then we have an event ID. And I should have gotten an email. So let's see here. AQI alert 151. Okay, good. And now, so I was because of the rules, if I go to 152, you'll see that event has been accepted, but I don't get any notification because we didn't go below the threshold. So let's try it out. So now we go below 150 and then back above it. And Spence. Here we go. Now we get the notification. So that's the basic demo, but it shows you like how easy it is to create your notification and use it. In the code here, you can go to the GitHub repo, you can look at the code, it's very simple, and you can easily integrate it. So this is Python, but it should work with, it should be pretty straightforward for any language. Now I want to show you a slightly, more full-on example. So it's in the DIY, do-it-yourself folder. And what I want to demo is just, how complicated things can get when you build your notification system yourself. So again, the code is available. And let's see what we have here. So I'm going to start the server. So here, what I've done in this code example is that I just use the Python logging module to just log what I would. Oh no, sorry, I use the Gmail service to send emails for all my notifications.
Hey, Arthur, we're still seeing the basic Python screen.
Zoom doesn't like me today. Okay, let's stop sharing again.
I guess I will distract everyone with some other words. So
yeah.
Yep. Again, while Arthur gets his server back up and running, so drop by the Notivize Discord channel, and we can help you get integrated. Like I said, we're We do have prizes today. So the prize that we're offering is a $500 cash prize. I'm not sure if we'll actually send you cash or whether it'll be transferred electronically, but it'll be small unmarked bills anyway. And that could be split amongst the team. For the criteria is basically try to make it part of a core use case of, so, if you're building a AQI sensor application, notify in a core use case like there's an alert versus welcome to sign up and things like that. So just a nice core use case is what we're looking for. And we've seen a few already with some teams, and we've been helping out.
All right, am I back up?
Yep.
Okay, so sorry for that. So where was I? So yeah, I just wanted to showcase like, okay, pretty simple example. When a user sign up, you want to send a welcome email and probably like verify your email also. And then when the user updates his email address, also send a notification that the email has been changed. And finally, the same AQI alert that we saw earlier using Notivize, but using your own code. So here I have a little view of the API I built. So I'm going to go ahead and create a user. Okay, so here, when I create a user, I should get an email. Okay, so I get the welcome. Great. And let's see if I execute. Okay, email already registered. And then what we want to do, so I already created a sensor for us. It's in the mission. The current AQI is 59. And I created some alerts. Execute. So one for info, one for warning, and one for alert. And then you have to kind of track, who is signed up for which type of alerts. Here I need to create one. So for user ID 1, which is the user I just created, the sensor 1, which is the sensor in the mission, and alert ID will use the second one, which is warning, so it's above 100. So here we have a success. Now, if I go to my sensor, not the post, sorry, the patch, and I update its AQI value to something above 100.
So I have bad news for you.
Oh no, it froze again?
Yeah.
I'm just going too fast.
So maybe we should just point people to the code.
Yeah.
Today.
Yep. But yeah, so if people want to go to the examples, you can see there are 2 pull requests, and that will give you an idea. So one of the pull requests is handmade AQI alert, which will showcase I had to make some changes manually to handle the fact that you want to send a notification really when you go above the threshold. And let me look at my code to make sure. So yeah, I had to make some changes to make sure that, where is it? Yeah, so from the previous value, right? So like, make sure that you don't send twice the same notification if the value didn't go under the threshold. And it kind of shows that I had to go kind of a long way to be able to do that by adding an extra table in my database to be able to track each AQI value and things like that. And then there's a second pull request called SFAX that shows you how I did the same thing using Notivize, and even more. Like I also had time to do a better notification for the email signups and email welcome and email update. So I did the Notivize one in probably like an hour, and then the other one took me half a day to build. So it just shows.
Can you talk about like lines of code, and because that's in the software development lifecycle, the less code you're maintaining, the better. So maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so from the from line of code changes, it's pretty obvious when you look at the PRs. One has like 85 additions and 59 subtractions. So it's like a delta of 20 something, 26. The other, that's for the using Notivize. And then for the one I handmade, I had to add 155. So I have plus 155 and minus 12. So it's a delta of like more than 140. So, I mean, for just a fairly small example, that's already like a big difference. And also, I did have to make substantial database changes to be able to support what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was the idea of those two examples.
Arthur, can I grab the share screen again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So yeah, if you go to the GitHub repo, I pasted it in the chat as well. Hopefully everybody can see my screen and it's not flaking out. You can see what Arthur's talking about in terms of going line by line. So again, it's what 1/5 or 1/60 the amount of code you need to write for the same function, actually more functionality on the Notivize side. You don't have to bring up custom database infrastructure to monitor what's been going on. We do that automatically. So just one last plug. It's not too late to integrate Notivize. Just go in. It'll take you 20 minutes to create a basic notification. Today's a good day to do it when you're polishing your app. You can sign up at the /sfhacks link. Check out the documentation, and yeah, we look forward to meeting all of you, the demos in the Discord channel. We're here to help, and good luck to everyone.
Yeah, and just to wrap
it up, we're happy to hang out and answer questions as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Although the second half of the Manchester Derby has started.